Hello, my wonderful friends. Welcome to another episode of Attorney Session Reacts. I'm your host, Attorney Marcus Session. Today, I'm going to go over none other than the Katt Williams situation. Is there defamation involved? Can Chris Tucker, Cedric the Entertainer, Ludacris, and Steve Harvey, oh yeah, and Kevin Hart, sue Katt Williams for defamation in California? For this take, we're going to look into some California law, so stay. As we know, Katt Williams appeared on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Club Shay, got over 50 million views in the first couple days. I mean, that's big time stuff. If you guys could help me get 50 million views, I'd be a happy camper. That being said, he had some very colorful comments to make about these individuals. And I'm gonna play these comments for you. And then we're gonna go over defamation in California. Defamation is a tort. A tort is pretty much an act or omission that gives rise to some kind of injury or harm to another person. So defamation, saying things about someone that harms them, yeah, we'll get into it and we'll break it down. For now, let's go over some of the comments that were made. Right now, I'm gonna play the comments that my man said about Chris Tucker.
If I'm being honest with you. And the Chris Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker, not Smokey.
Oh, Lord.
See, so he said essentially that Chris Tucker was hanging with Epstein on Epstein Island, right? It's a 72-acre plot of land in the Virgin Islands where a bunch of villas set up where apparently these trafficked women would be brought underage, many of them underage, and they will be forced to perform sexual acts. Katt Williams saying that Chris Tucker was on Epstein Island is pretty much accusing him of being a pedophile. So for Chris Tucker's case, let's first examine the tort of false light. A person in California can sue for false light when something highly offensive is implied to be true about them. And the kicker is it's actually false. So I would think Katt Williams claiming that Chris Tucker hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, implying that he's a pedophile and he had sex with underage women who were trafficked on this island, is highly offensive. Now, whether or not it's actually false, only Chris Tucker can prove that. Can he prove he's never been to the Virgin Islands, to Epstein Island? I mean, I suppose you could check his passport to see if it's ever been stamped or check his traveling records, but these are things he would have to prove in order to prevail on this claim, false light, in California. But now let's venture into defamation. So we're gonna cover defamation as it relates to the comments Katt made about Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, Ludacris, and Kevin Hart. So let's first go over what defamation is in California. So in California, defamation is a false and unprivileged statement of fact that's published negligently or maliciously. It can be libel or slander, which means it can be written or it can be verbal. In California, it could also include gestures and passing conversations. To prove defamation, a plaintiff must show: 1, a false statement was made about them and that false statement claims to be a fact. 2, the statement was published and communicated to a third party. 3, the defendant was either negligent, reckless, or intentional about the publication. And 4, the plaintiff suffered some kind of harm to their reputation. Now, usually courts will look at financial loss or economic loss in considering whether some kind of harm to the reputation was a result. There's one caveat to the third element out of these 4 elements that have to be proven in order for a plaintiff to prevail on a defamation claim in California. If the plaintiff is a public figure, then the defendant had to have acted with actual malice in order for the plaintiff to prevail on the defamation claim. What that means is that the defamation was published with the knowledge that it was false or the reckless disregard of whether or not it was false. Let's go over Katt Williams' comments regarding Kevin Hart first.
In 15 years in Hollywood, no one in Hollywood has a memory of going to a sold-out Kevin Hart show, there being a line for him ever getting a standing ovation at any comedy club. He already had his deals when he got here. Have we heard of a comedian that came to L.A. and in his first year in L.A. he had his own sitcom on network television and had his own movie called Soul Plane that he was leading? No, we've never heard of that before that person or since that person. What do you think a plant is? Maybe people don't understand the definitions of these words. He just did his documentary with Chris Rock where he shows you that his whole upbringing in comedy was on the East Coast.
Yeah, it was.
So how simultaneously was he here in Los Angeles doing the same thing? It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And I hate to seem like a petty individual for picking apart lies, but Jussie Smollett gonna keep lying until you say we don't believe you. But eventually the Lord is gonna let me and you be in one hallway. A lot of these dudes go, Kevin Hart done went 25 years without ever being in the same building with me at the same time. If I go in the building, he walk out. You've never seen us in the same building ever in 25 years. Like, it's like that. Why? Why?
Yes.
Because I'm really the product. It's not what you think. I am never under the influence of anything. For a 5-year period, every single movie that Kevin Hart did was a movie that had been on my desk, that all I had said was, just, can we take some of this step and fetch it shit out? And then I can do it. Like, it don't need to be overtly homosexual, because I'm not homosexual, right? It doesn't need that to be funny, right? And me saying that and them going, oh yeah, no problem. And then going to give it to this other guy and having him do it just like it was. And Kevin told you he wasn't gonna wear no dress until they offered him the dress, and then he put it on. And what did he say after he wore it? I made my own decision. Duh. But you didn't make it before they brought it up.
Okay, so essentially, he was saying that Kevin Hart is an industry plant. He performed homosexual acts to get ahead, and he's not a good comic. With those elements in mind, could this be defamation? Is it a false statement that claims to be fact? You could say it's more of an opinion whether or not somebody's a bad comic and whether or not somebody's an industry plant. I mean, so what? Somebody poured resources into somebody to become famous. Who cares? Were the statements published to a third party? Yeah, 40 million viewers in less than 2 days. So yeah, there's a lot of third parties right there. Was Katt Williams acting with actual malice when he decided to say these things? Did he publish these statements with the knowledge that they were false, or with reckless disregard for whether or not they were false? And lastly, did he suffer some type of harm to his reputation? Did he suffer some type of economic loss or financial loss? I mean, these are things that Kevin Hart is going to have to prove if he wants to prevail on this claim. And the same with the rest of the comments. Let's just go through the comments about Ludacris right now.
Are you related to Luda?
No, so there was a crossroads where we were both invited to an Illuminati thing, and it had to be one or the other of us, and decisions had to be made. So it was both of us, we were equal. One of us had to cut off all their hair and couldn't do the sideburn thing no more with the points. And the next person, they said, was going to get $200 million because they were going to pay him $10 million a movie to do 20 movies. And that's how the conversation happened. One of those persons turned out to be Ludacris, and the other person turned out to be Katt Williams. Now, one person ended up with a light-skinned, ugly-faced wife that's never done it. Remember I told you that if I say that, it applied to 7 people?
Yes.
It's part of what they give you. Okay? I didn't get it. I'm not mad about it.
How much money they give? 200?
Sir, Fast and Furious is on what number right
10.
now?
10. 200 million. I might need to get me one of the more women that look the same.
That's what they all end up saying at the end of the day.
He said Luda was involved with the Illuminati. False statement. presented as fact. How you gonna prove that Ludacris is involved with the Illuminati, right? How you gonna prove that that's a false statement presented as fact, right? Statement was published to a third party, 40 plus million people in less than 2 days. And did Katt Williams act with actual malice when publishing that statement? And did he know the statement wasn't true and disregarded? I don't know. It's hard to prove that because it's the Illuminati. Who even knows if it exists, really, right? So how are you going to prove that? Lastly, did Ludacris suffer some type of harm to his reputation, some type of economic damage? I don't know. These are things he's going to have to prove. The same with the statements that he made about Sid the Entertainer and Steve Harvey. Let's look at both of those statements right now.
I know you talking about Cedric.
Joke stealing from Cedric.
Yeah, Cedric.
Okay,
So you had said that 2018, 2019, but it came out in 2000, so I just want to make sure.
Okay, no. What comes out in 2000?
The original Kings of Comedy.
Right. I'm on BET's Comic View, and they're using this as the commercial in 1998. Okay. That's why I'm saying, yeah. So if I said the dates wrong, So
let's go back and clear that up.
Okay.
You said, I had Cedric on here, and I asked him about the joke stealing, and he said the timeline doesn't add up.
Correct.
To that point, you say.
Right. So he thought that I was just a no-name comedian and that he could take this joke and nobody would know.
Right.
The issue was that I had already done this particular joke on BET's Comic View twice.
Right.
It had done so well on BET's Comic View that they had made it part of the commercial. So part of the commercial of make sure you tune in to BET was you seeing me doing this joke.
Right.
And this joke is one of those jokes in comedy where you set it up and it takes a little longer to set it up, takes about 3 minutes, but then you're just hitting them with jokes after that because you don't have to set it up.
Right.
Mark Curry had already helped me work on this joke because I thought it was good because I was getting a standing ovation on it. He had me go back in the lab and help me craft it to be an even more powerful joke. So this is not just a random joke. This is my very best joke, and it's my last joke, and it's my closing joke.
Okay.
1998, I'm doing this joke. It's on Comic View. Cedric comes to the Comedy Store. He watches me in the audience. He comes backstage. He tells me what a great job I did and how much he loves the joke. 2 years later, he's doing that as his last joke on the Kings of Comedy. And he's doing it verbatim. He's just changed my car into a spaceship. Him and Steve had already apologized for me, so I gave him a pass for a decade. Why would you sit here and be like, I saw Katt 30 times, and Katt didn't do, as I stand before you, Shannon. I would have bust Cedric's stomach. There was nothing that would have kept me from one of these in that patch right there. Like, are you kidding me? Why would you downplay me like that? Why did I give you a pass if you were just gonna lie? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, they're all a group. Cedric, Steve, Ricky, they've been a group. Everybody knows that. They've been aligned. And there are these alliances in comedy. And if you stand against them, then they sometimes have a problem. But they pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that themselves. I can't do that because Steve told you that he stopped doing stand-up because he had 7 TV shows. The only problem is when he stopped stand-up, he didn't have those 7 TV shows. He stopped stand-up because he got in a comedy battle called the Championship of Stand-Up Comedy with one Katt Williams in Detroit in front of 10,000 people and lost because Katt Williams said he was actually bald and that was a wig. And I went in, and that's why he couldn't do stand-up anymore. Imagine him coming to tell you another story where he got so big and it was Bernie and them's fault because they wanted to be movie stars. What? You called Ocean 11 to get that nigga's part. What do you mean you didn't want to be a movie star? So on the behalf of Bernie, I would have to say what I have to say.
Have you ever been on tour with any of these guys?
Every guy I mentioned to you is not funny out there in real life. So no. Faison's never done his own tour in 30 years. Steve Harvey don't do stand-up no more. Cedric doesn't write. I'm sorry, he doesn't write.
He said Steve Harvey wasn't funny. He said he lost a comedy battle with him and that he lied about why he stopped doing stand-up comedy. He said that the entertainer stole his jokes and that he doesn't write. Now, these are all statements Katt Williams making as if they're fact. Now, if these statements are all false, then that first element of defamation can be satisfied. I think the second element, obviously these statements were published again to third parties. They were published on the internet. Was Katt Williams acting with actual malice? Remember, all of these gentlemen are public figures. He had to publish the defamation with the knowledge that it was false or with the reckless disregard of whether or not it was false. Did he know these things were false and he published them anyway without regard? These are things that the plaintiffs are going to have to prove to prevail on defamation claims. And lastly, can they prove that they suffered some type of damage to their reputation, some type of economic loss? Who knows? Like I said, these are all, when people throw around defamation and whether or not they're going to sue someone for defamation, these are all things the plaintiff is going to have to prove. Now, there are some instances where the burden of proof shifts to the defendant, but we're not going to go that in depth right now. But these are things that said entertainer, Steve Harvey, Ludacris, Chris Tucker, Kevin Hart, these are things all of these guys are going to have to prove in order to prevail on a claim should it get there. Now, do I think these guys are going to sue Katt Williams for defamation? I heard or was reading that, Kevin Hart was about to do something, but who knows? We'll see how it unfolds in the future. Regardless of what happens in the future, I'll keep you informed. Attorney Session will keep you informed. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the video with whoever you want to share it with, which means everybody you know. Please leave your comments. I love interacting with you guys. But until next time, take it easy, my friends.
Let's go.